Hello ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome back to another edition of my videos. And today we're going to be doing what is essentially the final part of our opening repertoire series. But I wouldn't say the final part just yet, as well, this I guess is the final part of what I consider the four most popular lines that will cover, I would say, probably 80 to 90% of your opening repertoire. Will I be doing more videos looking at the other lines? Potentially. It just all depends what happens with work right now. But in any case, we're going to be focusing what to do against the final, I guess the fourth most popular line, that is the move C6. Okay, so what is C6? Well, C6 is known as the Caro-Kann Defense. It's a really solid line that black can play against the move E4, and quite similar to the French in some ways. This C6 move is preparing the move D5. So just like with E6 preparing D5, C6 is doing the exact same thing. And black typically gets some very, very solid structures. You often have this sort of deadly triangle of pawns that acts as almost like a shield against his entire position, and it's a really difficult line to break down effectively. But what am I going to be recommending against this? So against this, I think the best thing to do is play D4. So take over the center and control these four central squares. That's pretty much going to be vital in all of our positions, as you've seen, and makes sense in the opening. D5 is most likely going to be played against you, so the whole point of C6 was to play D5. And against this, I quite like this move, E takes on D5. So C takes on D5, and it looks eerily similar to the French defense, but there's a slight difference here, and that is that the pawn structures are asymmetrical. So we've got on the king side a 5-3 majority here, but on black's queen side we've actually got a 4-2 majority on this side. So quite typically when these structures occur, and these are actually very similar structures to the Queen's Gambit declined position, so the exchange Queen's Gambit declined, so the Carlsbad structures I should say, white will be looking to try and push his king side pawns and try and isolate this one of the black pawns in some way. In a similar way, black will be doing exactly the same plan. He'll be pushing these minority pawns to try and isolate one of white's pawns. Why is it so important to try and isolate a pawn? Well, in the endgame, an isolated pawn can potentially become a target for capture. We saw in the last video one of the positions, although we like to get the isolated pawn in the short term because it gives us a lot of developmental chances and a bit of space, in the long term it's a bit of a weakness. If we can get into an endgame, if we start exchanging off all the pieces, it can become a target to go after. But those are very much long-term plans. But what I want to focus more is just on getting our pieces out to good squares to start with, and then we can play the middle game from there. So I'm going to give you two recommendations. The first is kind of just a slight alternative if you don't want to play the line I'm going to show you. And the move here is C4. So this is actually a very respectable line. This is known as the Panov-Botvinnik attack, or just the Panov attack according to my database. The point here is just like what we saw in the French defense with that early C4, white is willingly giving himself the isolated pawn. Why is he doing such a crime against chess, you may be asking? Well, quite simply, white gets some very good short-term advantages in doing so. So if, let's say, black was to capture, again, he doesn't have to do this immediately, but if he captured now, let's say, white gets some nice piece development, very good amounts of space as well. The point being is that this pawn controls these really nice key squares c5 and e5. We can also get our pieces out to very good squares and castle very quickly. They are some pleasant positions, but obviously bear in mind black has essentially a target to go after. So try and avoid piece exchanges, try and avoid going for an endgame, as this pawn can potentially become a weakness later in the position. But certainly in the short term, it is a very, very nice position. But instead of that, I'm going to be recommending bishop d3. Bishop d3 allows us to have a very easy, straightforward development. So we're going to essentially next move play the move c3. This obviously just helps bolster this this d4 pawn. Get our knights to good squares. Oh, I should also say bishop here onto f4. Get our knights to nice squares. So f3 and maybe knight to d2. Castle, and then get our rook to e1. And we have some simple ideas. If black is not playing particularly ambitiously, we can get the knight into this lovely e5 square. It's very difficult actually for black to get anything to challenge this knight. It's a little bit difficult to prepare the e5 break without weakening black's king side significantly. So we typically will most likely get our knight into this lovely square, and we're just gonna sit on a very comfortable position, maybe launch some sort of kingside attack with those pawn breaks that I was talking about. Okay, so what does black do against this? So knight to c6 makes sense. Developing, attacking a pawn seems pretty good. c3 defending, knight to f6, bishop to f5. We get s4 to getting both our bishops out. Bishop to g4 could be played against you, so now attacking the queen. Knight to f3, e6. So preparing the bishop move and then castling. But bear in mind, with this move, what's quite nice is we've now got this potential square we can go to. Obviously, right now we can't do it as the knight is pinned, so just bear that in mind. Knight b to d2. So now defending this knight. Bear in mind, this bishop capture, never a problem. We recapture with the knight, but even earlier on, if let's say the bishop captured now, we take back the queen. Nice and easy. Okay, bishop comes to d6 is the most popular move, but you could face potentially this queen to b6 idea. What's the whole point of this? Well, because we've played our bishop out to f4, it's no longer defending the b2 square. But we don't need to worry too much against this. I quite like the move rook to b1, where it's then simply defending this pawn. If, let's say, bishop came to e7, bear in mind, it can't come to d6 as it's no longer defended by the queen. We castle normally, black can castle normally, and now we can get in the rook to e1 idea, controlling this nice semi-open file, and then hopefully at some point look at ideas of trying to get our knight to this really, really nice square. And if we can get the other knight in, it's just absolutely lovely position for white to play with. Okay, but going back, so instead you could face this bishop to d6 idea. Against this, I think once again we can capture this off nice and easily. Queen captures, and once again we'll be aiming to try and get this knight to e5 idea, but with the added benefit as we don't need to have a look after this pawn on b2. So very, very nice position. Castles, rook to b1. I think we're doing absolutely fine here. So we've managed to pretty much nearly complete development. We're going to have a nice square to go on to, and we're going to do absolutely fine. An example continuation here you could see is a move like a6. So black is getting on with his plan now of trying to create an isolated pawn for us. Against this, there's an interesting line with queen to b1. The point being, it looks a bit funky, but if we play queen to c2, one of the downsides of it is there's this interesting tactical resource with rook here. The point being is now black is threatening to come to b4, but I think this is absolutely fine. We could actually play a move like a3 here now, so just stopping this knight from coming there. But the problem with this move is b5 could be played, and it's not. I think black is going to be kind of getting out his plan quicker than white. But in any case, I don't think it's that bad at all. If I look at the engine, it's still saying white has got a slight edge here. So I don't think it's a particularly dangerous line to have to worry about. Another idea that I've seen actually is playing the move h3. The problem with this idea though is it does allow this bishop to get on with his plan of rerouting round to g6 to then try and swap off these bishops. Bear in mind this is our good bishop, so it's in white's best interest to get rid of his potentially bad bishop because it's on the same squares as most of his key pawns, and try and swap it off for our good bishop, which is on the opposite colour of his pawns. So after a move like this, maybe a queen to e2 looks all okay. Rook here, move like g4 looks very nice. We don't need to worry too much about the king side here. I think although it doesn't look very safe, black hasn't got enough pieces to really be doing too much against it. After g6 we can capture here quite comfortably. And I think white has got a very nice position after a move like this. I think we're doing absolutely fine. If, let's say, the knight comes to d7, we can even look at ideas of playing f4 or even knight to f3. But I think actually even this is pretty good too. And then we can even think about getting the other knight to that square, which I think is an absolutely pleasant position. White has got a nice space advantage that he can work with, and I think it's I think if anything, white has got probably a slight edge in these positions, and he just can focus on his own little plans in fighting against black. So as you can see, the positions are really calm. We're getting really easy development, and I think white is doing absolutely fine here. So that's pretty much it for this video. As I say, our main ideas: get our knights develop, bishop here as well, castle, rook to e1, look at ideas. If you can get in knight to e5, you're doing really fine. I think black is going to really struggle in playing against this line. So that's it, guys. So that's it for my recommendation against the Caro-Kann. As I say, this was kind of the final part, I would say, for this particular simple white opening repertoire. I might in the future have a look at some of the other lines that black can play. It depends really on what demands out there, I suppose. But I might have a look at sort of Scandinavian stuff. Maybe look at the Piets as well. As these are all lines that you could face. The Caro-Kann, modern. What else could black play against you? I'm trying to think now. I'm running out of moves. Oh, there's also Nimzovich as well. That could be played against you. So we might have a look at these in some future videos. But for now, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. And at the very least, I hope these series of videos has been helpful for you in just having a basic repertoire to play with against the four most popular moves that black can play. So yeah, if you've liked this series, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do so soon. Take care, bye bye.